Hello, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be going over 3 ACT math questions. For all these problems, I recommend pausing the video and trying the problems yourself first before you see me solve them. Without wasting any time, let's get into it. Question 21 says, what is the xy solution if 1 exists to the system of equations y equals 2x plus 6 and 6x plus 12 equals 3y? So my recommendation for this problem would be to, you could either substitute y into this equation. So it would be 3 times 2x plus 6. That is one way to do it. But I think the better way, not the better way, but like the way that makes more sense to me, would be to solve for y in this equation. And then since we're trying to find the solution, right, I would set these two equal to each other. So let me show you guys what I mean. So this equation can be rewritten as, if you divide by 3, you're solving for y, right? You get y equals 6 divided by 3 is 2, 2x plus 4. And now if you have y equals 2x plus 4, you can set that equal to 2x plus 6 because both of these equations equal y. And this will help us get the solution so we can, as we can solve for x. So since both of these equal y, 2x plus 6, we can set them equal to each other. 2x plus 6 equals 2x plus 4. And if we solve for x, we actually notice that if we subtract 2x, the x's cancel out. And we get 6 equals 4, which is not a true statement. So there is no solution to the system as the x's cancel out. Another way of doing this problem, there are actually multiple ways of doing this problem. You can either do this method, the method I just showed you. You can substitute y equals 2x plus 6 for y in this equation and then solve for x. Or you can also just plug in points and see which of these get you the same answer. So what I mean by that is, let's say if I plugged in -3 for x in both of these equations and 0 for y in both of these equations. And if I got the same number, then that would be a solution. Also, a key thing to realize here is that if these are the two equations, y equals 2x plus 4 and y equals 2x plus 6, let me show this to you guys on desktop. Since the thing to realize is that since their slope is the same and their y-intercepts is different, these are parallel lines. And as you see in the graph, these lines are never going to intersect because they're parallel. So that's another reason. That just shows how the answer is no solution. On to question 58, which says, for what values of b does the equation x squared plus bx plus 1 equals 0 have no real solutions? So for this question, when you see for what values of b does the equation have no real solutions, I want you to think of the discriminant. The discriminant of a quadratic equation is b squared minus 4ac. This is your discriminant. If b squared minus 4ac is greater than 0, if your discriminant is greater than 0, then you have two solutions. Two real solutions. Nope. If b squared minus 4ac equals 0, then you have one real solution. And if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, then you have 0 real solutions. So we are looking for the have no real solutions. Since we want no real solutions, we want the discriminant to be less than 0. So let's do that. Let me bring this down here. So b squared minus 4ac, we want it to be less than 0. Remember, for a quadratic equation, this is the format. X squared plus bx plus c, where a is the coefficient of the x squared term, b is the coefficient of x, and then c is just your constant. So b is just a variable right now, so we don't replace that with anything. So it's b squared minus 4. A, in this case, is 1. The number in front of x squared. And c, our constant, is just 1. And we want this to be less than 0. So b squared minus 4 times 1 times 1 is just 4. You want that to be less than 0. And b squared, if you add 4 to both sides, b squared is less than 4. All right, to solve this now, you need to realize that first 4 is a perfect square, right? Which means the square root of 4 is 2. And the other thing to notice on the left side is that no matter if b is negative or positive, you're going to get a positive number regardless, right? Because a negative number squared is a positive number, and a positive number squared is a positive number. So the thing to realize here is that this tells us two things, that b has to be less than 2, right? Because let's say b was greater than 2. If b was 3, 3 squared is 9, and 9 is not less than 4. So b has to be less than 2 in order to follow this inequality. The other thing is that, let's say b was -1, right? -1 squared is actually 1. 1 is less than 4, right? So to account for -1, b has to be less, b has to be greater than -2, right? So b has to be between -2 and 2, which matches answer choice K. And you could also eliminate the other answer choices as, well, if we know that b squared has to be less than 4, well, for f and g, if b is like -4, -4 squared is 16. 16 is not less than 4, so that gets rid of f and g. For h, same logic. And for j, it says b could be anything between 0 and 4, exclusive. If b was, let's say, 3, 3 squared is 9. 9 is not less than 4, which also gets rid of answer choice j. So the answer to 58 is K. All right, on to the next question, which says, for what positive value of K will the expression 9x squared plus kx plus 25 factor into the form parentheses ax plus b, parentheses closed, squared for some real number a and some real number b? So what this is telling us is, if you see it's saying parentheses ax plus b squared, you want that equal to 9x squared plus kx plus 25, right? Because you want it to factor into this. You can rewrite this as ax plus b times ax plus b, as this is just the same thing as ax plus b squared. And you set that equal to 9x squared plus kx plus 25, because that's what 9x squared plus kx plus 25, that's what you want it to factor to. You want 9x squared plus kx plus 25 to factor into ax plus b times ax plus b. So for this problem, the thing to realize is that in order to get 9x squared as a term, using the FOIL method, we know that ax times ax has to equal 9x squared, which means ax squared has to equal 9x squared, and we can solve for a. Ax squared equals 9x squared. Since x squared is on both sides, we can cross it out. So you get a squared equals 9. And if you solve for a, you get a equals 3. And now since we know what a is, well, we can just replace that. 3x plus b equals 3x plus b, right? Which has to equal 9x squared plus kx plus 25. The other thing to remember is that according to FOIL, b times b, which is b squared, that has to equal 25. So b has to be 5, which means it's going to be 3x plus 5 times 3x plus 5. And now if we were to solve this, we would get 9x squared plus 15x plus 15x plus 25, according to FOIL. And we get 9x squared plus 30x plus 25 equals as your polynomial. So your answer to this question is 30. Now, some of you might be wondering that, isn't the square root of 9 also -3? It actually is. And the square root of 25 is also -5. But the thing to realize here is that it says that you want k to be positive, right? Which means that a either has to be positive and b also has to be positive. So the values of a and b have to both be positive, or they both have to be negative. Why, you might ask? Well, let's say a was positive. Let's say b was negative, okay? B was -5. If you were to solve this, you would get 9x squared minus 15x plus minus 15x plus 25. And if you combine like terms, you get 9x squared minus 30x plus 25. This doesn't match what the problem is asking for, as it says for what positive value of k, but in this case, k is negative. So it can't be a, that means that a and b both have to be positive, or a and b both have to be negative. And if a and b were both negative, what would actually happen is that if you were to simplify this, you would get k equals 30 either way, because you would, I'll just show you. If you simplify this, you get -3x minus 5, -3x minus 5. FOIL 9x squared. -3 times -5 is plus 15x, and -5 times -3 is also plus 15x, and then -5 times -5 is 25. You see how the negative times the negative gets you the positive? So it doesn't really matter. The negatives don't really matter. So, yeah. So the answer to this question is 30. I hope that makes sense, and thank you for watching.